On a summer evening in 1900, a king made a fatal choice. He removed his protective vest because the heat was unbearable. Minutes later, 3 bullets ended his life and set in motion a mystery that would span 125 years. Hidden in a bank vault in Rome sits a black leather case sealed with 11 official seals containing jewels worth over £300 million. The chest remained unopened for decades until a single inspection in 1976 confirmed the contents were intact. The Italian royal family claims they belong to them. The Italian government says otherwise, and the truth, it's far more complicated than anyone imagined. The jewels we're talking about belonged to the queens of Italy, women who wore them to project power, to communicate national unity, to create an image of permanence for a kingdom that was, in truth, remarkably fragile. Queen Margherita, with her cascading pearls and that spectacular diamond stomacher. Queen Elena, who sacrificed her personal jewelry for Italy's war effort, but kept these crown jewels for the state. And the story of how these magnificent pieces ended up sealed away involves betrayal, wartime deception, a mother's quiet defiance, and a legal battle that took nearly 8 decades to resolve. Today, we're going to trace the journey of these jewels from the height of Italian royal splendor to their current imprisonment, and discover why their fate matters so much more than you might think. The queens and their splendor. Let me take you back to 1868, when Italy was still finding its identity as a unified nation. Queen Margherita understood something profound. A new country needed symbols, and she would become one of them. She commissioned a stunning diamond stomacher shaped like an elaborate bow, featuring 768 diamonds with a spectacular pink diamond at its center. But here's what's crucial. This wasn't purchased with royal family funds. It was bought from the Italian state treasury, a detail that would become legally significant 178 years later. Margherita became known as the Queen of Pearls, and she wore them with deliberate intention. Every appearance was calculated to communicate that Italy's monarchy stood equal to the great dynasties of Europe. Her most iconic piece was the Savoi knot tiara, created around 1883, interweaving the family's heraldic symbol with lustrous pearls and brilliant diamonds. The motto inscribed on it read, "Stringa ma non costringe," it tightens, but does not constrain. How tragically ironic those words would become. When Margherita passed these crown jewels to her successor, Queen Elena of Montenegro, she wasn't just handing over beautiful objects. She was passing along an entire language of power and legitimacy. Elena wore them to the most significant moments of early 20th century Italy, the 1929 Vatican visit that ended 60 years of hostility between the monarchy and the Pope, the 1939 coronation of Pope Pius XII, and her daughter, Princess Mafalda's wedding. In 1915, when World War I was ravaging Europe, Elena made a historic sacrifice that tells you everything about her character. She donated her entire personal jewelry collection to fund Italy's war effort, keeping only the official crown jewels for essential state functions. This act of patriotic surrender would later become central to debates about whether these jewels were ever truly private property. If a queen gives away her personal treasures but keeps the crown jewels, what does that tell you about who really owns them? The shadow of war. September 1943, Italy is collapsing. Mussolini has fallen, the nation has signed an armistice with the Allies, and Nazi Germany is flooding into the peninsula with ruthless efficiency. King Victor Emmanuel III, elderly and politically compromised by his decades of accommodation with fascism, makes a decision. He will flee Rome. But first, he must secure the crown jewels. Picture this. Officials at the Quirinal Palace open a modest black leather case, just 39 by 31 by 20 centimeters, small enough to carry, yet containing centuries of accumulated treasure. Inside, on 3 shelves lined in blue velvet, rest the regal ornaments of the House of Savoi. Then comes the knock at the door. A German officer arrives bearing an order allegedly written by Hitler himself, demanding the Italian crown jewels for transfer to Berlin. The Nazis were systematic thieves. Polish crown jewels had been plundered, Soviet imperial treasures looted. Now it was Italy's turn. But Italian officials were prepared. With bureaucratic composure, they informed the German emissary that King Victor Emmanuel had already fled Rome and taken the crown jewels with him. The story was false, but it bought precious time. When German forces opened safe number 3 at the Quirinal Palace, they found it empty. The Nazis had been deceived. The truth was far more dramatic. The jewels had never left Rome. Italian officials had secretly transported them through a 16th-century tunnel connecting the Quirinal Palace to the nearby Barberini Palace. Inside the Barberini, they dug a niche into the wall and entombed the black leather case there, sealing it from the world. As Rome descended into chaos, as Allied bombs fell and German soldiers occupied the streets, as the Gestapo hunted down political prisoners and Jews, the crown jewels lay hidden in their wall, waiting silently for liberation. When American forces finally entered Rome in June 1944, the jewels emerged from their hiding place. They had survived not through military might or political victory, but through deception and the loyalty of a few brave Italian officials. The nation says no. June 2nd, 1946. Italy stands at a crossroads. The referendum question is simple but profound. Monarchy or republic? In the south, monarchists fear communism and value the continuity of the Savoi dynasty. In the north, Republican and socialist movements demand a break with the fascist past. King Victor Emmanuel III, recognizing the danger, abdicates in favor of his son Umberto, hoping a younger, less compromised king might sway voters. It's too late. The vote is 54% for republic, 46% for monarchy. The margin is narrow but decisive. The Kingdom of Italy, which had existed since 1861, is ended by popular referendum. Umberto II, crowned king just 24 days earlier, is now a king without a kingdom. He would forever be known as Il Re di Maggio, the May King, because his reign lasted only 34 days. But before departing, Umberto faces an impossible choice about the crown jewels. On June 5, 1946, just 3 days after the referendum, he orders his minister of the royal household, Falcone Lucifero, to transport the black leather case to the Bank of Italy. Lucifero documents the moment in his diary with language that has haunted historians ever since. "I see the crown jewels for the first time. They are truly marvelous and worth more than $1 billion. He notes that the collection contains an estimated 6,732 diamonds and 2,000 pearls mounted on tiaras, necklaces, brooches, and bracelets. The black leather case is then wrapped in tar paper, sealed with 11 official seals, and placed in a vault. Umberto leaves behind a cryptic note stating the jewels should be kept at the disposal of those who have the right to them. But he doesn't say who has the right. He boards a plane to Portugal on June 13, 1946, never to return to Italy alive. With him goes his wife, Queen Marie José, who carries all her personal jewelry into exile. But the crown jewels remain, locked in a bank vault, prisoners of history. The mystery deepens. For 3 decades, the crown jewels sit sealed in the Bank of Italy vault. No one opens the case, no one photographs the contents. The very mystery of what lies inside becomes part of the jewels' power. They are simultaneously the most famous hidden treasure in Italy and virtually unknown to the Italian public. Then, in 1976, rumors swirl. Have the jewels been stolen, damaged, lost? The Bank of Italy decides to conduct an inspection. On July 2, 1976, in the presence of government officials, bank representatives, legal experts, and two of Italy's most prominent jewelers, Gianni Bulgari and Tito Vespasiani, the sealed case is opened for the first time since 1946. What happens next is both anticlimactic and deeply troubling. The jewelers examine the contents carefully. The jewels appear intact. There's no evidence of theft. But both jewelers are profoundly underwhelmed. Bulgari later comments that the collection contains no coloured stones, no rubies, no sapphires, no emeralds, and no extraordinary diamonds. This is extraordinary criticism of a collection supposedly worth over $1 billion. The question that emerges, whispered in professional circles but never publicly acknowledged, are these really the kingdom's treasure? The jewels are closed back in their case, resealed with 11 seals, and returned to the vault. Meanwhile, the question of ownership remains entirely unresolved. Legally, politically, and emotionally, no one can decide. Do the jewels belong to the Savoi family or to the Italian state? The Savoi exile. For 56 years, no male member of the House of Savoy is allowed to set foot in Italy. This is enshrined in the Italian constitution, a clause so severe that it bars not only Umberto II, but all his male heirs and descendants from returning. It's a political decision born from fear, a newly republican Italy, still traumatized by fascism and remembering the monarchy's complicity with Mussolini, cannot tolerate the possibility of royalist restoration. Umberto II lives out his days in Cascais, on the Portuguese Riviera, in comfortable but permanent exile. He dies in Geneva in 1983, never having returned to Italy as a free man. But history doesn't stand still. By 2002, as Italy matures as a republic and European integration progresses, the ban on male Savoy descendants is lifted. Prince Vittorio Emanuele, Umberto II's son, is allowed to return. He comes to Rome quietly, not demanding, not claiming. When asked about the crown jewels, he's magnanimous. For that matter, we have no claim on the crown jewels. We have nothing in Italy, and we are not asking for anything. What he does ask is that the jewels be displayed publicly, so Italians can see their national heritage. The request is refused. The Italian government, the Bank of Italy, and political authorities all decline. The jewels will remain locked away. Yet in 2024, after his death, Vittorio Emanuele's heirs, his sisters, Princess Maria Gabriella, Maria Pia, and Maria Beatrice, make a dramatic decision. They will no longer accept the limbo. Through their lawyer, Sergio Orlandi, they file a formal legal claim. The crown jewels, they argue, had never been confiscated, never formally donated to the state. They remain private property, the personal treasures of the House of Savoy. The Bank of Italy rejects the claim, but the Savoi family presses forward. The court ruling. May 15, 2025. Rome's civil court issues its decision. Judge Mario Tanferna, citing the Statuto Albertino, the 1848 Piedmontese constitution that unified Italy, and the Italian Republic's constitution, rules that the crown jewels belong to the state and not to the Savoi family. The judge's reasoning is historically grounded. The Statuto Albertino established that crown jewels were given to monarchs as a dowry, not as personal possessions, but as instruments of state power. They were to be worn to perform official duties, then passed to successors. They were never meant to be inherited as private wealth. The Constitution of the Italian Republic further emphasized that all royal properties were state property. The 1946 referendum didn't create new law. It simply enforced what was already constitutionally true. These jewels belong to the nation, not to individuals. The Savoi family's strongest argument, that the jewels had never been confiscated, unlike other royal properties, is dismissed. The judge notes they had never been confiscated because they had never been private property in the first place. They were always the state's. In the ruling's aftermath, Elena Capolino, the Bank of Italy's former chief lawyer, expresses hope that, as a citizen, those jewels will finally be displayed in a museum where Italians could see them. Sergio Orlandi, the Savoi family's lawyer, announces his clients will appeal to the European Court of Human Rights, arguing that the seizure of family properties violated human rights law. The case continues. But legally, in Italy, the question has been decided. The crown jewels belong to Italy. So here we are, 125 years after King Umberto I's assassination, and the crown jewels of Italy remain locked in a bank vault, sealed with 11 official seals, in a black leather case that has been opened exactly once in nearly 80 years. They are simultaneously priceless and worthless. Priceless because they represent a dynasty and a history, worthless because they remain locked away, useless, unseen, and legally owned by a state that has chosen not to display them. What strikes me most about this story isn't the legal battle or even the jewels themselves. It's what they represent about the impossible choices nations make when they transform themselves. Italy chose to become a republic, to reject not just a king, but the institution of monarchy itself. Yet the symbols of that institution, the jewels, cannot be destroyed because they are national heritage, nor fully returned because the nation says they are state property, nor openly displayed because that would glorify what the Republic rejected. These jewels, accumulated by queens who hope to communicate permanence and power, have instead become monuments to impermanence and loss. They sit in Rome behind 11 seals in a case with blue velvet lining, waiting. Waiting for what? Perhaps for the day when Italy can finally decide what its relationship with its own past should be. The crown jewels of a kingdom that no longer exists, locked away not by any individual's greed or fear, but by the weight of history itself. What do you think should happen to these jewels? Should they remain sealed, preserving their mystery? Or should they finally be displayed for all Italians to see? Share your thoughts in the comments below. I'd love to hear your perspective on this fascinating piece of history. If you enjoyed uncovering this hidden royal mystery with me today, please give this video a like and subscribe to the channel. There are so many more untold stories of royal jewels, powerful women, and the legacies they left behind, waiting to be discovered. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.